Hello, Mayhem Makers. It's Mindy with Quilting Mayhem again. We are on, technically, it's week 2, which is the first week of actually sewing for the mystery quilt. So I'm going to show you the first step. It's actually pretty easy. It's something I've done tutorials on before, so hopefully this won't be too bad for you. I am going to try to take you through step by step, so I apologize. You're going to have to watch me sew. I didn't do a fancy pre-done video where we edit out all the labor in between. So bear with me. Love you guys. Hopefully you're okay. Happy Friday. So you have all your pieces cut, hopefully, or you watched the tutorial I just did, and now you're going to have all your pieces cut after we do all this and get ready to sew. So remember, 1/4 inch seams are important. Make sure that you're pressing as you go so that everything's nice, crisp, clean when you're done, so that you don't have issues with some wavering or waffling as you go. If you do have some struggles, just reach out to me. You know how to find me. Mindy at quiltingmayhem.com, call the shop, whatever, track me down. I'll gladly help you. So in the end, your block will look like this. So I call this kind of a half of a log cabin, because log cabins generally go all the way around the square. This is only going half. So you're going to start with your square. We're going to add on and just keep going. And we're going to go kind of left, right, left, right, left, right. It's all you're going to do for this block. So very simple, very easy. Shouldn't have too many problems. Just keeping that 1/4 inch. That sometimes is a struggle. And we're just going to keep working on it. Practice makes perfect. So to start with, we have our square, we have a rectangle. I'm going to tilt this down, I guess, because we don't care what I look like this morning. So take your square in your first 2.5, I think it's 1.5 by 2.5 or 2 by 2.5. I apparently haven't had coffee this morning. 2 by 2.5. Right sides together. Doesn't matter which side. This is the very first one, so don't sweat it. Unless you're using directional and you care what it looks like. But that's going to get turned around in this quilt. So please, if you are OCD, you better start just letting that go. Otherwise, you're going to do a lot of stressing to plan it. Put them right sides together. One of your raw edges together. Take it to your machine and sew it. I'm just going to get this thing going this morning. And then we're going to give it a good press. So make sure you keep those 1/4 inches nice and pretty. I don't like extra threads, so we're going to get rid of those. I do what we call setting the seam, so I am going to take it. Let's see if I can get my iron to reach today. We love when I just change what I'm going to do right in the middle of a session in a room with not a lot of room. And I'm just going to press it. I love this mat. This is my travel mat. I can take this to classes. I'll move my other pieces out of the way. So I put my iron down on it first. As you can tell, I should have just pulled out my little iron. But why? Where's the fun in that? I press seams open. And for this one, it works well. And I also am a steam user. You don't have to be a steam user, but that is my preference. I've been doing it that way, I think, 25 years, so why would I stop now? Pressing. Press downward. Not, even though I just did it. I don't recommend doing a lot of that, because what it'll do is push your fabrics. It'll stretch them, and then you don't always get the best results. So generally, just straight down, which is what we will do from here on. That was just a demo for your purposes of, please don't do that, because you might not be able to tell, but it is a little wavery here. I will fix that later. I can always trim that up. If I've stretched it out, I can trim it back to where it belongs. Next piece, right sides together. Now this obviously needs to fit on one of the long ends. Right now, we're putting it so that this green square is on the left side, this background piece is on the right side, and then I'm putting this one on what I would call the top. So if that green square is facing you on the left, the background is on the right, lay this piece on the top. And that's how I did all of mine. So if you do it the other way, just make sure you stay consistent. And then I'm going to take it to the machine. Now notice, okay, I'm not doing pins because this is such a short seam. I'm not worried about it stretching and all those kinds of things. So keep in mind though, you want your nice raw edges, top and bottom. You don't want it to go too far this way or the other way because your block will start to get out of shape as you go. So lining up these edges also, and this edge, keeping them straight as you go. If you feel you need pins, please use pins. At this stage, I don't worry too much. Trim all my stuff. I have wood floor, so I don't have to worry about threads as much. So straight down on your pressing. And then this is why I have acrylic nails also. So I use it kind of like a tool to open my seam. And I just kind of press and hold. Make it nice and flat. So then I can keep going on and on. And it's really going to be the same steps over and over and over. So now I have it green square on my left. I have my backgrounds. And then we're just going to keep going. So green square, background to the right, background on the top. I'm then going to do one of my prints. Notice I'm doing very scrappy. I can embrace scrappy. So I just grab random colors. And then I'm going to put them right sides together. Same thing. Make sure the edge I'm going to sew is all straight and flush. And then make sure my top and my bottom match up. And it's nice and centered. Take it to the machine and just keep going. And we're just going to keep going and going. This is why I apologized in the beginning. So, because this part's not as exciting, I guess. Hey Nancy, happy Friday! So happy it's Friday. Oh my goodness. And just keep pressing. Now I do have a wool mat as my regular pressing station, which I love because the wool actually retains the heat on the bottom. And so you kind of have heat from the bottom and heat from the top. And it just makes a nice flat seam. This one's doing pretty good too, so I'm not complaining because it's portable. So we're just going to keep going. So next piece, right sides together, match that edge that I'm going to sew, match these edges so everything's centered. And I'm just going to take it to the machine. We're starting to get into longer lengths. If you're concerned that it is going to shift on you, by all means, go ahead and pin. I at least will pin my end point, say here, to make sure that it doesn't try to keep shoving off the block. And then that way, once I start, a lot of times I will start, I'll get a couple stitches in, I'll pause, I'll give the bottom a little tug and make sure that everything stays lined up. Because sometimes when you go to the machine, you start sewing, this likes to start creeping in a little bit. So sometimes I get a couple needles in, I stop, and I just give it a tug, make sure everything stays lined up. So don't get too excited and try to be a speed demon with these, especially if you're new. Keeping your seam straight is more important than speed. And make sure you pull your pin out before you end. Do not run over your pin. That is very, very bad for your machine should you accidentally run it over. Very bad things can happen to your machine, and you don't want to have to talk to the technician and explain why. So as you can see, my iron is nice and hot now, and open that bad boy up, turn it because I'm running out of cord length. Because I have it wrapped halfway around my sewing room now. At this point, I just kind of cover, and I'm not doing like down, hard pressure, back and forth. I'm very gentle, moving it across side to side, so that way I'm not trying to make it wonky in my pressing. And you'll be able to see it. If anything, I would be able to then take a square and check it and see if I am getting out of control. So right now we're at 6 inches square, and it's looking pretty good. I'm not getting it where it's pushing out any one direction. So if anything at this point, stop, check it. Is it at 6 after you've done 2 rounds? If it is, good. If you're more than 6, you may want to trim a little bit. If you're less than 6, depending how much under you are, you may double check how your seam allowance is. You may be taking too thick of a seam and want to start sewing just a skosh inward from your 1/4 inch foot. We're just going to keep going. We have 2 more. We're almost there, guys. Same thing. I line up top and bottom. I line up my straight edge. Sometimes with these lighter prints, I make sure I have the print going the right way. I won't tell you how many of these I've done that I've accidentally had the print on the wrong side, and sometimes I've left it because you can't tell in the end. So remember, we're teaching you stress-free quilting. That is our plan. So don't worry about it. Unless you can really tell. If I could really tell that that one print is upside down, I take it out. I do a do-over. That happens a lot. I get in a hurry. I don't pay attention. Lighting isn't always great in my room. Right now I've turned on all my video recording lights so that hopefully you guys can see what's going on. So all I did was just kind of gently scoot it. I don't even have the iron all the way down. So I gently scoot it till I have that seam entirely open. And then I'm going to apply some pressure. Same here. We're just going kind of up and down. Up and down. And I'm just gently gliding it so that I'm not pushing my fabric and stretching. Okay. My iron's nice and hot. So, and of course this is a print that's directional, so I'm going to make sure my words are going upward, just because there are certain things that do bug me. So same thing, right sides together, take it to the machine. And so and like I said, so here's where I have, let's see if I can show you here. Maybe there's some blur. I am a couple stitches in. I've stopped. I'm now down. Can you see my fingers down here? I double check. So I make sure these corners are lined up because I didn't pin it. I'm going to pinch it, and I'm just giving it a tug. And you probably really can't tell, which is too bad. But I'm giving it a tug so this kind of all starts to line up. And because I'm at the bottom of the bed, my machine, I actually can kind of hold my finger on that end. I have my left hand on my block, and I'm kind of holding these strips in place, and then I'm going to sew. So once I get to some longer strips, this is how I generally do it. So this hand's kind of keeping everything under control along the length with these fingers, and then this finger down here is kind of keeping control of the bottom to make sure that these two sides stay in alignment where they belong. Otherwise, I can't. I can kind of scoochy, I can stretch, I can pull, I can loosen, all those kinds of things, just to keep everything where it belongs. So, then I get to the end, and of course, I'm going to take this finger away. That finger stays close, but be careful. Please don't put a needle in your finger. Do not get that close. And if you're not sewing too quickly, you shouldn't have a problem. But it does happen. People do, unfortunately, end up with needles. I still, knock on wood, have not joined that club. I've come close. I've skimmed a finger or two. I'm fortunate. Another reason for my acrylic nails, I keep saying this is why I have it. It's for my own safety. It's because usually they will deflect off my nail, or even with my cutting. That's what happened yesterday. I actually took a chunk off of my nail, but that's all that I lost, and I'm okay with that. So here's our block. Can we scooch it back a little more? There we go. So that's what it looks like. We just went here, 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 to this guy, to that guy. And you should end at 7.5 square. So if you have a bigger square, I have a 9-inch square. I went through and cleaned up all my blocks, made sure that they were square. So if a little bit, like this one, you can maybe see there's a little whoopsie from that ironing that I showed you with pressing too hard. I will clean that up. If it's more than 7.5, I will clean that up so that as we keep going in this quilt, I will not get waffling and wavering. So we'll come back to me. So, baby. All right, guys. So that is this week's project. So grab up all your strips. You're going to use them all. So by the time you're done, you should be out of loose pieces of fabric and have all kinds of squares that look like this. So hopefully, if you have any questions, you know how to reach me. Otherwise, make sure you're still sharing those blocks, showing us how they look, and happy stitching. Have a good Friday, guys.